This is looking pretty cool. There's the brute scale Centaur upper body on a 1.0 Mythic Legions lower body.
DorkLair!
Welcome to another DorkLair action figure review. Today I'm taking a look at the Mythic Legions Aphareus Centaur action figure. Debuting in the 2022 Illythia waves, a member of Zylona's flock, and he is the stable lord and responsible for training Alder the moose and other steeds of the realm. So one cool thing about this figure, you know, aside from it introducing centaurs to Mythic Legions, which is cool as hell, is that we're also seeing a new scale body. They originally made this upscaled 1.0 sized body just for the centaur, and then they said, hey, why not make whole figures? So future waves are going to have brute scale figures that use this bigger upper humanoid upper torso, right? Like that torso, the arms, the shoulder pauldrons, like everything from the waist up on this figure is a new scale, brute scale. So it's going to be fun with this review to take a look at that brute scale. I'll pull it apart and try to do some swaps. I've seen some people pop that torso onto original 1.0 legs. It looks a little weird, but not too crazy. Like it's kind of possible, especially if you're going to make like a weird, you know, like a deformed kind of like monster type character, maybe with like dwarf legs or something. Anyway, I am super pumped to have this figure in hand, so let's get into this review. First up, here's a look at the packaging, and this is actually a horse box on its side. They said it's essentially the same dimensions as a horse box, which makes it really good for them for shipping and packing, but they turned it on its side. They opened up the window over here, and when the figure's in there, he's facing that way. And I do love that Nate Barch artwork in the back, which is, I presume, Amberion, the realm of Zylona, I think. Not totally sure about that. And then on the side here, we have that realm. Then that transitions into more of the evil realm. Then you have the evil horse on this side, and the bio for Aphareus on the bottom. And on the back, we have that wonderful Illythia artwork and the other steeds in the wave. Here we are with a close-up of all of the wonderful sculpture, paintwork. I love the way they've done the color of the flesh. And then you have these little patterns on here, like animal-like patterns. Like they do a good job of blending a human-type elf head with like a fawn head that makes it really feel like it is part of this like nature creature, this like enchanted being, right? We've got horns on there. We've got some shinier, almost like metallic leaves. He's got a braid in the back and just lovely detail all throughout that head sculpt. And I love these shoulder pauldrons. They're painted in a way that makes them almost look like they're made out of wood. And there's some washes in there. Nice detail work in those little buttons or rivets or whatever. And here's a look at the back of the pauldrons and the new gauntlets. And I think these gauntlets are somewhat scaled up version of the other gauntlets we got in this wave. And he's got this new skirt piece here and this separate loincloth type thing. And again, these, like, I don't know, to me these would be leather, but they kind of have a wooden feel to them. They almost look like wood. And then, yeah, lots of, just tons of details. This belt piece is separate, and I'll pop him all apart later on. And then we have hands, just a pair of gripping hands with horizontal hinges. I don't think there are any other hands in this scale yet. And then getting down into the body, the horse body. So this is essentially the same as the other horses. From the waist down, this is, you know, a regular horse. Like this is essentially the Aphon body because it's got the more hairy legs over here, right? And of course, many of the parts are also shared with Balius and the other horses, but there's a look at it. I do like this color scheme, and I'm going to swap out to have this lower body with Balius's top so you can see how this body looks as a horse later in the video. And next, let's see how he looks next to a few other figures. Here's how he stands next to a couple 1.0 style figures from the wave. On the left is Bardric, on the right is Baron Voligar 2. And here he is next to a couple Mythic Legions steeds. On the left is a naked Athon, and on the right is the Phobos figure from the same wave. And here he is towering over a couple Mezco figures, the Conan the Barbarian on the left, and the Batman Justice League with a head swap on the right. Next we have the Masterverse She-Ra on the right, and on the left we have the Super 7 Ultimates Thulsa Doom. And then for accessories, he does come with almost like a little weapons pack here, like a mini weapons pack. He does have the ornate longsword that also came with Baron Voligar. I love that sword so much. He has the elven longbow, and then he's got a quiver of arrows with it. And unless I dropped it on the floor or something, I don't think it comes with like a singular arrow. Like a lot of figures, they have just that one loose arrow. If anybody got an arrow with it, let me know. I have tons of them though, so I don't really care. And then he does have the trident, which is an awesome weapon, and it's painted very nicely with multiple colors. You can see some different finishes and things throughout it. But one thing that was going on with mine was that the topper, which is removable, mine was either glued on or the paint was just real stuck, and I had to heat it up. And what I did was I just gripped it like right down in here, you know, as close to the connection points as possible, and I just really stiffly just tried to wiggle it like that with some strength without really torquing it too hard, and then eventually it kind of broke free and I was able to get it off. But if you're having troubles with yours, heat it up and play with it and don't push too far. And then next up we'll take a look at the articulation. So this is like two things. We have essentially the upper body of a humanoid figure and then the lower body of a standard horse. So the upper body really functions very similar to a Mythic Legions 1.0 style figure. The head is on a ball joint, but because there's so much hair and the pauldrons stick out of the back a little bit and the beard, there's really not a lot of movement. So you can kind of twist a little bit. If you mess around with it, you can bring this in the back, like up and over here, and twist the head a little bit. But it's very limited because of all the stuff going on him, including the beard and the pauldrons. The pauldrons peg into the back so they can swivel up and down like this. And with the pauldrons on, you're not going to get a ton of movement in those arms. He can bring his arm out this far, and then he can bring it up a pretty good amount, but like you can't swing it all the way around because it's going to look really weird when the pauldron starts to shift off over here. At the elbow, you have a swivel and a hinge, and the hinge brings it up to a little bit less than 90 degrees. You can twist it at the gauntlet, you can twist it at the wrist, and then there is a hinge horizontally at the wrist on both hands. At his waist, it's a ball joint, just like very similar to a lot of the other Mythic Legions figures. So, you know, he can kind of like crouch down a little bit and look down at people. And then there's also an articulation point under here. So you have the ball joint at the waist, and then when you're getting into like the horse parts, you can kind of see that piece can move up. So he can come way back like this, or he can come way forward when you're using both of those parts right there. And I'll pop this thing apart so that you can kind of see all the insides of these articulation points in a minute. For the horse articulation, the front legs are on a hinge, and then there's a twist at that point as well. Same thing here, hinge with a twist at the knee, and also the hoof does have a hinge here that can come forward and back, and it can twist as well. Same hoof situation in the back, maybe just like a slightly different range there, but you have that hinge and you have a twist. Hinge, twist at that knee. Towards the upper leg, you do have a hinge here, and that can also twist. And then there's a ball joint at essentially like the back hip or the haunches or whatever it is. So that can swing forward, back quite a bit, and then you can kind of bring the legs out and in because it's a ball joint. The tail is pegged in and it can swivel at that peg, and then it can also hinge up and down. Finally, I will pop him apart so you can see what it all looks like, and I will try a few swaps. So we got the head on a ball joint. That pops off very easily. Shoulder pauldrons are just pegged into the back, and if you've ever messed around with a 1.0 Legions figure, that's very simple there. And then at the waist, he has a ball joint, again, very similar to a Mythic Legions 1.0 figure. And then here we have the leather belt that actually has a piece attached to it that covers up. There's a gap there that this covers up right here. And then this belt here, sort of belt skirt piece, comes up and over like a typical one. And then this pegs into the front like a normal loincloth. And then you have this piece here, which is very specifically made for the Centaur. It's basically like an adapter or an alternate neck type thing. And that's constructed with a straight peg that kind of goes in here. And then that's at the top has a ball joint. So that really gives a lot of motion and a lot of articulation over in this area here. And so this is the part we're going to swap. And right now, we essentially have a new horse body, and I'm going to put Balius's head on there. Okay, and then here I have taken Balius's head out, and it's essentially the same peg here, and that can pop right in. And you'll notice, like, it's pretty close. It's maybe slightly different, but if you just use this to break that transition, then it's going to look fine. So pop that on here, and there we have our first swap. And I'm not going to put the saddle on right now, but let me get this positioned a little bit. And so there's a look at this horse kit bash right here, which I think is fantastic. If you have an extra Balius and an extra Aphareus, this is a great look. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the large torso and I'm going to swap it on to a 1.0 sized figure. And just real quick so you can see the size difference. You know, it really is a scaled up version of that. It's just a little bit bigger. And yeah, so they are compatible, but it's not going to look quite right because you need the bigger legs and the bigger rest of the stuff for this particular figure. So we're going to use Bardrick because it's just what I have on hand right now. I don't think it's the ideal one to do it with, but if we take the skirt piece here, pop this on here, and yeah, I mean, that doesn't really look too bad, honestly. Put that head on there, and let me just back him out a little. I don't think I would use these particular legs for this move, but yeah, you can see it's like, you know, it's just kind of like more of a deformed guy, but it kind of works. It's really not too bad. And then the loincloth also fits too. It's a little loose, but it does fit in there. This is looking pretty cool. There's the brute scale Centaur upper body on a 1.0 Mythic Legions lower body. And just so you can see how it looks next to a regular 1.0 Mythic Legions figure, there's a barbarian with it, and you can see it's, you know, just slightly bigger in scale. And proportionally, I think the shoulders on the new body are a little bit like bigger. They're just up higher, I think, and that's a pretty cool look. So I really love this Centaur. Aphareus, awesome addition to the Mythic Legions line. They are just building it out, and it's so much fun. Anyway, thanks for watching my video, and until next time, may the Force be with you.